in coming years, I think CSR or science as a stream, people would understand more that what does science means in the life of people. See, writing papers, filing patent is one thing, but impacting the life of people is something different. These are the various 68 clusters now we have taken up additional in different areas because we have the very diverse expertise. And what does this number would do? These clusters, 12 billion is the annual turnover of these 68 we have taken. If we can make a difference of 10%, it's a very significant difference to the nation. If we can enhance the wages of the people, 2 million people who are, 6 to 7 million people who are employed. Whatever we have done, our learning through this partnership with the NINC, and again we must thank Mr. Petroda that he did establish the partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guptaji. So this was quite an interesting panel. I'll sort of sum up some interesting points the various panelists made. I think when it comes to clusters, there's some key success factors, at least we heard in the examples talked about today, that you need to really have a national vision around clusters and approaching clusters in a thoughtful approach. But also you need to act local and be local. Without being there on the ground, in the field, being local, you're just not going to get that multiplier effect. Also very heavy partnerships in all of the examples we saw, which means you need fairly skilled networking and business development type of skill sets to sort of get established locally, which is not necessarily very easy. And then the drivers towards the cluster efforts can be varied. They could be national agencies, R&D labs such as CSIR and Fraunhofer. It could be driven by the local industry, which is an example we've had, universities, which is we also heard. And then very important is you need to measure and constantly measure and remeasure and calibrate. So I think these are just interesting points. So I thought what we'll do is maybe just spend 5 minutes. We're a little, just about 3. If you can just spend 5 minutes for questions from anyone in the audience, and then we'll close the session for the next. Any questions? All right, we'll then get on to the next session then. All right, thank you.
Also one of the speakers. I welcome everybody to this session. It's a session on academia-industry interface, and we have a distinguished panel here. And I would like each speaker to limit themselves to about 6 minutes, and we'll try and stick to the time schedule. I have as my first speaker Dr. G.W.J.M. Linson. That's you, sir. He is the Deputy Director for Innovation and Knowledge, Ministry of Economic Affairs, Agriculture and Innovation, Government of the Netherlands. Could I request you to make your presentations?
Session of today, partnerships for innovation is a main topic to Dutch innovation policy. In these 6 minutes, I will try to explain why and how. Let me start with the strengths of the Dutch economy. First of all, our geographic position. We can be seen as a gateway to Europe. Secondly, in the Netherlands we have some strong technological clusters like high-tech, food, water, life sciences and chemistry, but also, for example, the creative industry. Some of you may remember that last year on the first Global Innovation Roundtable, we presented a plan for improving design education in India, the so-called Indeed scheme. Our overall competitiveness is a third strength. Our ranking improved to the 5th position in Global Competitiveness Report 2012. For instance, our labor productivity is exceptional high. And fourthly, our scientific excellence, according to some statistics, we rank 3rd in the world after Switzerland and the USA. But the Dutch economy also has some weaknesses. First of all, our science and engineering education system may be of high quality, but it doesn't attract enough Dutch students to keep us going in the future. Secondly, our private R&D figure is relatively low. One of the reasons is that our services sector, for example, trade, finance, business services, is so big. 70% of the total added value comes from services sector. On the whole, we have a rather knowledge-extensive economy, and one of our main policy goals is to slowly turn it into a more knowledge-intensive economy. And now I come on our policy. To reach this policy goal, we developed in 2010 a new innovation policy, the so-called top sector approach. It rests on 2 pillars. First of all, more scope for entrepreneurs through generic policy. We have fiscal measures to promote R&D in the Netherlands, and that is the general basis for our policy. Some 2 billion euro every year will be available for fiscal R&D, on labor costs, on investment in apparatus, and on the rewards of patenting. Secondly, we have the specific approach, focus on the strength. And the essence of this is the so-called golden triangle. Businesses, knowledge institutions and the governments are put together in the so-called top sectors. We identified 9 top sectors in which the large part of private R&D is concentrated. High-tech, agro-food, water, energy, horticulture, chemicals, creative industry, logistics and life sciences. And in these top sectors, businesses, knowledge institutions and government have to work together to create optimal R&D. The 9 top sectors are characterized by, first of all, they are knowledge-driven. Secondly, they have a strong export orientation. Thirdly, there is sector-specific regulation. And fourthly, they have a large contribution to grand societal challenges. The approach, the so-called top sector approach, is comprehensive. It not only focuses on innovation, but also on foreign trade and investment. It brings all government departments together to reach the goals, and it concentrates the financial means of governments, knowledge funds and institutions and business enterprise. And it is demand-driven by business enterprise in close cooperation with our public knowledge institutions in basic research, mission-oriented research and applied research. I think the organization of the top sector policy reflects the idea of private-public partnership. Every top sector has a so-called top team. It consists of leading business people and leading people from knowledge institutions with representatives from the government involved. The top sector policy has also an important international focus. 8 out of 9 top sectors have published an internationalization agenda at the moment. These internationalization agendas formulate a comprehensive agenda. It comprises economic diplomacy, development aid with increased involvement of business, such as in water and food, strategic acquisition, and the use of embassies and attachés. We have formulated a number of priority countries: Brazil, China, France, Germany, India, Israel, Japan, Russia, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, USA, and Canada. One fine example I must mention here is Diwali. It means the Dutch-India Water Alliance for Leadership Initiative, of which Dr. Ramasamy of the Indian Department of Science and Technology is the spiritual father. It consists of several public-private partnerships, including financing systems and business models. We believe this plane, the plane of the top sector policy, has taken off now. We are building it. Business people, enterprises, and knowledge institutions are very positive so far. According to everyone, cooperation between them is better than it used to be. And I think the greatest compliment so far is that the new government, which will start on next Monday, has already decided to continue the top sector policy. I can also mention 2 typical Dutch examples of the public-private partnerships. For example, in the Eindhoven region, there is a Holst Institute, and that is very famous in the field of high-tech, and it is a cooperation of university, of applied research institutions and big companies. And also in the field of agro-food, I would like to mention the Wageningen University, which also has research institutions and in which businesses and knowledge institutions and government work together. And this is where we want to go, to the top. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and since I wasn't here at the very start of the session, let me introduce myself. I'm Shashi Tharoor, the Minister of State for Human Resources Development in the Government of India, and you all began with a punctuality that we're not accustomed to in this city, so apologies for having missed the beginning of the first speaker. Our second speaker is Professor Hans-Jörg Bullinger, but he's not here, is he? Are you here? In a few minutes. All right, then we'll move on to Professor Giuseppe Stellin. Is he here? Yeah. Right here. Oh, yes, next to me. Nice to see you.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Before presenting the activities of Technology Transfer Office of University of Padua, I would like to show some general features relating to our university. University of Padua is the number 6 in Italy for dimension. Number 2 for age, was founded in 1222. Number 1st or 2nd for quality in the last 6 years. Resources for research, 2,200 teachers, 32 departments, 39 research centers, 53 libraries. According to our beliefs, the University of Padua have 3 missions to fulfill. 4 missions if you have to consider public health. The first is, of course, is teaching, education, research But the third is technology transfer. The goal of technology transfer is to valorize the result of applied research to contribute to the development of a region. The second is raise additional funds for university. These two goals need to be achieved by Technology Transfer Office. In fact, this office aims at valorizing the know-how developed by the university and at transferring the technology from university to the industry. In particular, the objectives of the Technology Transfer Office are to convert the result of applied research done by university faculty members into products and services that can be sold on markets, to promote entrepreneurship based on research and technology development, to spread entrepreneurial culture in academic world. So, the activities of Technology Transfer Office are many. To patent professor invention and license them to the companies, to give consultancy to professors willing to set up a new venture, to promote a business plan competition to find new business idea among researchers, to offer a physical site of university spin-offs and technology-based startups, to help companies interested and willing to cooperate in using the research results, and the last but not least, to promote a network of private investors willing to invest their personal money into startups. All the services offered by Technology Transfer Office are integrated. In fact, the service of Technology Transfer Office are coordinated by the same person, and the political responsibilities is in one person, the Vice Rector for relations with the industry. The way to make technology transfer from university to the market is, the publication of research, which make the know-how freely available to all possible users. The research contract, which allow to get funding from the final user of the result of the research project. To patent, which allow to sell the know-how to the user that will have a monopoly. The creation of university spin-off, which makes the producer of the know-how to final user of it. The Patent Office manage the intellectual property of the university in compliance with the strategy, guidelines, and regulation of our university. The Patent Office is managed by the Technology Transfer Office in intellectual property of the university. So take care of the filing, the administration, the maintenance, the legal protection of the license of our patents. According to the university patents rules, if the patent license generates revenues, inventors get 60% of net profits. Our portfolio now is 143 patent families, 14 trademarks, 1 design model, 27 patents licensed or sold. Like you can see, we have an increasing trend in invention we are being patented by our university. The patents area are concentrated in the field of engineering and life science, chemicals, and also agronomy and environment. The path from the invention to the patent application needs to pass through some important follow-up steps, like the pre-filing activities of the Technology Transfer Office, like provide support to investors to evaluate the patentability of the invention, prior art searches, like to avoid, in inverted commas, reinventing the wheel, and post-filing activities, like to keep the schedule of the various obligations, or to promote the patent within the industry and contact interested companies. Another important activity of Technology Transfer Office concern the university spin-off. It's a business founded by a researcher to valorize the result of his own research activity in his scientific knowledge, where university can be a partner. The particularity of the spin-off lays in the fact that it is promoted, created and animated by one or more people who have a tight relationship with the research world. The University of Padua enhanced the creation of spin-off because it is the main tool to transfer technology to the market. In our experience, brilliant scientist ideas need an efficient organization, an efficient management, and efficient marketing. But also, it is important to have a team with mixed skills and the presence of a senior manager to accelerate the activities of the spin-off.
So your 6 minutes is up. If you could,
Is it finishing?
if you could wrap up fairly
Yeah.
quickly, thank you.
So I want only to mention the other activity. The other activity are Star Cup, Incubator Star Office, is an incubation, a physical incubator, and the company help desk. Is office where the companies, especially small and medium industries, which are not able to develop internally the technological research that generates innovative know-how related to this help desk. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and I apologize for the interruption. I believe it was announced at the very beginning it'll be 6 minutes each. We have an impressive array of 8 speakers, and we have to finish at 4 o'clock, so I have no choice but to be rude. I understand. I will try and be equally rude to all the other speakers to follow, so that you're not singled out. Mr. Stephen Odhiambo.
Good afternoon. I was supposed to be here yesterday, but unfortunately, I arrived in India exactly 24 hours ago. And so please, Honorable Minister, allow me to talk for 8 minutes, because I'm representing the entire continent of Africa, minus Mauritius. They are the only other country in Africa who are in this room. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, we want to acknowledge the invitation to come to India. For me, it's the first time in my lifetime to come to India. But through the High Commission, the Indian High Commission in Nairobi, and the National Innovations Council, you invited us, and we are very grateful. Secondly, I come from the Ministry of State for Planning, National Development, and Vision 2030. Now in Kenya, the blueprint for economic development is the Kenya Vision 2030. And within that blueprint, we emphasize the importance of science, technology, and innovations. In Kenya, we have realized that the way to move forward to uplift the socio-economic development of our people will be through enhanced science, technology, and innovations. And therefore, I'm the head of research, science, technology, and innovations, the first one in the government of Kenya, so you can clap for me. But the most important thing about what we are doing here and my coming to India is to join in this international cooperation so that first we may learn from the vast experience of India. Those of us who are at the presidency, he emphasized one important thing, that those of us who came from other continents and countries, when we leave India, we shall leave richer than we came, because India is the leading hub of innovations in the world. And therefore, we are here to learn from your experience, to get to know what you do, that always puts India number one, but also to try and do the same where we come from. Because I only believe the difference between Kenya and India is the Indian Ocean. We share a common border in the Indian Ocean. So we need to learn from each other, and we need to strengthen what we are doing, particularly in strengthening partnerships for innovation. So what we are doing in Kenya, and the current emphasis, is to leverage on science, technology, and innovations, and particularly to promote success, because we believe through science, technology, and innovations, these are the new avenues for socio-economic development in the world. So we encourage that, and under my leadership and through my ministry, we have created what we call Science, Technology, and Innovation Forum, where we invite key players in the science, technology, and innovation sector to come, first of all, to share a common platform. Secondly, to learn from common experience and knowledge, and also to share that to help the country move forward. That one, I do it twice every year with the minimum support from the government of Kenya. But I think as I live in India now, I have more friends, and next time I need help, I'll call upon you to support us. Secondly, we also work with the private sector through what we call LIWA, linking industry with academia. And we invite national and private universities in Kenya. We invite also key players in industry to network and work with us. And what we have created in Kenya to promote the linkage between industry and the academia is that we have established sector-specific boards through which people partner and work together. We also support, through the Ministry of Education, at school level, what we call the science conferences, and also we help projects in secondary schools and at college level. So we have established those kind of partnerships. We also work with the National Council for Science and Technology, the equivalent of your National Innovations Council, to promote and support young innovators in the country with the limited financial support. But we also call them to a forum, at least to share their passion of innovation and also learn from their common challenges and successes. Under the Kenya Vision 2030, we are also trying in the next phase of development under the Science Medium-Term Plan Sector Working Group to encourage other players to tell us the key priorities for development. And the focus, as I said, will be on science, technology, and innovations, because as we move forward in the national development process, that's what we need to do. We have realized...
That's 8 minutes, sir.
Let me finish just the 8th minute. What we have realized is that we need to leverage on innovations to help bring about inclusive development. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would have said much, but in Kenya, where I come from, when the minister talks, you must stop. So I'll stop and thank all of you.
Thank you for your understanding of our time compulsions. As I mentioned, 8 speakers to finish by 4 o'clock, we're only 3 down so far. Mr. Dinesh Singh is the Vice Chancellor of Delhi University. I should have introduced the others by their titles as well. Mr. Diambu is the Deputy Chief Economist to the Ministry of Planning in Kenya. And our 2 previous speakers, Professor Stellan was the Vice Chancellor at the University of Padua, and Dr. Linson was the Deputy Director for Innovation in the Government of the Netherlands. So we have Dinesh Singh, Vice Chancellor, Delhi University.
Thank you, Minister, and I hope my 6 minutes start from now. It's a delight to be here, and I'm here to speak on an experiment that is underway at the University of Delhi. And it's in its infancy right now. It's about a year old. We set up a cluster innovation center. And what we are doing there, in my personal opinion, should be actually happening in the entire university system. But it isn't happening. And that's why we had to set up this separate entity. But we hope that the learnings from here will help drive change and bring about innovation in many ways, not just in the university system, but in society as well. And the idea behind the Cluster Innovation Center is to create a two-way process of give and take between slum clusters, village clusters, industrial clusters, education clusters. And that's based on the premise that education really happens in the world. It doesn't happen within the confines of a classroom, something that our university systems seem to have forgotten. So that's the first innovation. But there's much that's happening here which is of value, and I will quickly share that with you. So the whole thing is being driven into, in limited ways, the beginning, but with fuller measure in time, our teaching programs. So we have set up 2 teaching programs, degree programs, formal, but totally redefined. A B.Tech in innovation with mathematics and information technology, and a B.Tech humanities, design your own degree program. It's a meta college. There are other things happening there at the center, but I will quickly brief you on this. And I invite attention, cooperation, and participation in these programs. So the idea is to encourage young minds to think out of the box. And through these thinking processes, create experiences that educate the student. And so they work not so much through the formal mode of learning, but through project work. And these are exceptionally dedicated students. I've stopped using the word talented because I really do not know what is talent. It is motivation and dedication which brings about everything else. Everything else, including talent, follows in its wake. And in the 1 year that we have been in existence, I have seen these students grow in amazing ways. So as one project in which they are using so many facets of their own learning experiences, some of which come to them from the formal system, are being put into play. A bunch of these students traveled all the way to Satara in Maharashtra. It's a remote area. And they've mapped out a village there. And they've devised a program that will create a 24-hour water supply for the village. Now, when I say a program, I do not mean just a computer program. It's a hands-on activity. This may look easy, but what they have really done is actually create a standardized model that can now be refitted onto any village system in India. What have they used? Of course, they had to get familiar with the village, its topography, its geography, all the other factors that they need to take into account, so on and so forth. They used IT. Remember, this is a math IT innovation program that looked at Google map of the village. They mapped out certain features, then they used a discipline in mathematics called graph theory. And they mapped out its water planning structures, the pipeways. Then they used what we all study at the high school level, calculus, to work out the gradients. Then they built a simulation model on the computer. And all our results so far are exceptionally encouraging. But more importantly, these students are enriched in every sense of the term. So I spoke to them this morning. I wanted to share their experiences with you. And these students told me that they have learned to communicate better. They have learned to cooperate better. There's a sense of purpose in their lives. All our learning systems now, because we have innovated, come to them through challenges that face India and civil society. And that stimulates and spurs the students on. The next project is to bring the nano into the center, to take it apart, this vehicle that the Tatas have created, which is so innovative in so many ways. Take it apart, check out the innovations, see how they could make it better. And as I said, all other facets of education accumulate to them. In exactly the same way the humanities program works. And they connect with different segments of society. These students are given the freedom to choose any course up to a certain extent amongst the entire gamut of courses that the University of Delhi offers. They could take anything. In addition, more than half the learning for the 4-year program will happen through projects. And the students are working on this almost 100-year history of the area surrounding the Vice Chancellor's office building, which dates back to 1857, the time when the Indian uprising took place against British rule, the armed rebellion. And they're creating a sound and light program through their lessons in history. But they have to bring in technology, they have to bring in so many other things. My point is this. Through this system, we are driving all kinds of new ways of creating innovation and using that as a vehicle to connect with society. So we also run a train, and we are in the process of purchasing a train to run a college on wheels. And this train traveled with 1,000 girl students through a significant part of India. But this wasn't just a journey. They educated themselves, and the fact we need to recognize is that students who are motivated tend to educate themselves. 1,000 girls educated themselves on this journey in 1,000 ways. The thing is now we need to bring this along a larger network. We need to connect with all segments of society. We need to connect with countries across the globe. And that is beginning to happen. And once again, as I said at the beginning, I invite participants here to do two things. To come and see what we do, to share our experiences, to enrich us, but also to take this message forward. Many institutions, including industrial, are taking interest in what we are doing. But the key factor in any innovation, and I say this because if you look at Gandhi's life, you will understand what I mean.
6 minutes.
I'll take just 30 seconds more. The first major innovation that happened at the political level in India is when Mahatma Gandhi, 90 years ago, decided one early morning, break of dawn, to give a nationwide strike call against the British. I marvel if he had technology at his disposal, what could have happened? If he had the cell phone and if he had used that, even without that, he created a major, major disruption through that innovative practice. I'm reminded of the saint poet Kabir, who said, Mala kahe kaat ki, tu kyun phere moe, man ka pher le, turat mila du toye. People who turn the bead to reach their maker, the bead talks to them. Why do you do this? Change your mind, not turn the beads, and I'll take you where you want to go. That's what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dinesh. Dr. Shailendra Vyakarnam of Cambridge University, is he here? Yes. Director for the Center of Entrepreneurial Learning. I'll give you 5 minute signals. You have a full minute to wrap up, certainly.
All set. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Just very briefly, the Vice Chancellor of Cambridge was invited. He had to commit himself to a prior engagement in the US, so happily I was able to come in his place because I was in Bangalore on leave. I was very, very keen on making things happen in India. The other thing is that we're 13 years older than Padua. I don't know if that makes any further progress for Cambridge, but it's nice to be here among the ancients, as my children will remind me. I'm director of the Center for Entrepreneurial Learning. It's a very deliberate title. And one of the reasons we set that up was, precisely the point about getting our students to engage with industry. And the model we've chosen for that is what we describe as education for entrepreneurship, which is distinct from education about entrepreneurship. And about entrepreneurship is all the venerated business schools which are in this graph here. And there's three rogues which are together doing things for entrepreneurship. The MIT environment, the Stanford environment, and ourselves at Cambridge, where we bring in the tech entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, and local industries and businesses to come and interact with our students in a variety of ways. I have more information for those that want that. Why do we do this? Well, Cambridge, first and foremost, is a deep research institution. I hope these slides will be forwarded to you. So on the left-hand side is all the research, the commitment, and so forth. On the right-hand side is the commercialization part. And the piece in the middle is the piece we all struggle with. The Fraunhofer has given us a fabulous set of models, and I know even the UK wanting to try to copy that to some extent. But in Cambridge, we solve it in slightly different ways. So the middle piece, which is the highly complex translational journey, is what we're trying to figure out. So universities provide fresh insights. They try to solve big problems through their research. On the other side, markets, industry takes them to go test them, scale, provide benefits to society, and turn a profit. In the middle, it's all about de-risking the problem that's being solved and understanding if there are markets for this or not. So those are the kinds of issues. So one of the mechanisms that we use is to leverage the role of alumni. Now, I've been doing some odd studies here with colleagues at Kanpur, IISc, etc. So I'm going to paint an Indian picture rather than a Cambridge picture of Kanpur. And one of the messages I want to give you here is that the alumni of this institution, the IIT in Kanpur, has itself created dozens of businesses. And so that's a fantastic picture. And for me, it's not about the businesses, it's about the role of the individuals. The second piece is, I have a visiting professorship at the Institute of Science. I'm starting to look at this venerated institution, which is much maligned for not having done many spin-outs. But if I start looking at that, if you look at what the alumni have done and where they have gone, people like Homi Bhabha, Satish Dhawan, amongst dozens of them, they've created institutions like the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Space Research Organization, IIT in Kharagpur, etc. So they've been building institutions. Faculty themselves have started companies, not always in good spirit, because of the tech transfer process there is a bit rigid, bit 1930s. And from the departments have played backroom office roles, where companies like Wipro came out of the computer labs, and then IISc's 20 alumni who created Wipro have subsequently started over 100 companies. So we cannot underestimate the role of alumni in the industry links. Here's a picture from Biocon, another well-respected Indian company in the biotech sector. They too have had alumni who have gone and done spin-outs and startups. So the role of alumni is important. This is a picture from Cambridge. This is the godfather of the Cambridge Mafia, Dr. Herman Hauser. He created the first ever PC, Acorn Computers, and subsequently has invested in something like 60+ companies, given the university money, has a venture capital firm. His friends in the company of Acorn have subsequently themselves set up companies. The yellow blobs are the alumni of Cambridge University. The others have been allowed in, maybe some even from Oxford. So 60+ companies, some of them have billion-dollar valuations and so on. So again, the alumni have played a role in taking technology from the university labs into industry. So one of the key things, that the parting message there is the role of alumni cannot be underestimated when you're trying to build so-called ecosystems and clusters. And how do we leverage all of that? Then we talk about building an ecosystem. Well, an ecosystem in Cambridge is sometimes referred to as pondweed, where the entrepreneurs hang out with the frogs and the snakes and the mess there. But we've got an example of an ecosystem which we're forming between Cambridge and Bangalore. Because it's alphabetically oriented, it's Bangalore-Cambridge Innovation Network. And here the reason is the blue box, which says research, is because both IISc and Cambridge have both got deep research. They're both bottom-up institutions, a lot to share culturally. The translation piece, Cambridge has kind of worked it out with about 200 entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, who constantly do things like proof of principle, startups, early stage funding, and so forth. What Cambridge does not do, this is Cambridge, England, does not do is scale. On the other hand, Bangalore does not do much translation. It does do research, but Bangalore does scale. So we think there is magic to be made here between industrial scalability and the translation effect of entrepreneurs based on research that's coming out of institutions solving big problems. So that's our experiment for the next 2 to 3 years. And ultimately, I think translation requires an ecosystem. And the ecosystem, what we're talking about, requires porous boundaries, where sometimes I see very formal, rigid boundaries around institutions that I visit. But in Cambridge, internally, we have well over 14, 15 little agencies that together do entrepreneurial things like student societies. There's something in the physics department called the Cambridge Integrated Knowledge Network. Various academic departments do their own thing. It's a very bottom-up environment. Our tech transfer function is called Cambridge Enterprise. I run the Center for Entrepreneurial Learning. We try and animate all of that. We are linked in to these 1,400 companies, which together employ about 40,000 people. There are 40 networks of various kinds, industry networks around a small community of 1,25,000 population, i.e. 125,000 people in Cambridge. It's a small suburban town in India. We have an investor community. It's dwindling, if I'm honest with you. Right now, it's a bit tough because the deal flow isn't there. But all the professional services help us out as well. Thank you so much. So what the experience of Cambridge has been is that indigenous development has come first. So the Medical Research Laboratory, LMB, Nobel Prize-winning scientists like Cesar Milstein and the biotech industry starting up, computer-aided design resulting in Adobe, Acrobat, and so forth. Then come the science parks, and it's only in the last 5, 10 years that you have so-called foreign direct investment of big R&D companies coming in. Similar to Bangalore, actually. So what are the messages, reflections, why we need academic industry links? Translation is tough, especially in science and technology. It is not about setting up coffee shops. This is hard work. Requires money, requires people, requires a comprehensive ecosystem and policies at macro, meso, and micro levels. This is complex. The fourth bullet point here is where I think India might trip up unless it addresses the issue, which is the development of human and social capital with deep knowledge of process of translation. I don't think we have enough of those people in most countries. We certainly do not have enough of those in India. We have businessmen and we have scientists, and they don't talk to each other yet. Enough. Academia has relevance, industry has scale, and I hope the role of alumni brings interface and ecosystems together. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Vakam. Yes, you actually managed to beat the 6-minute clock. Thank you very much. A bonus prize at the end. I'm sure that Sam will organize that himself. Sam, we've been trying to keep this on the clock, and we're a little behind, so I'm moving right on. Our next speaker is Dr. Philippe Dutaxi-Dupuy of the European Union.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, given the time limitation, I will try to first highlight some of the main elements of the joint declaration signed in February this year by Europe and India at the EU-India Summit in February. This joint declaration is about establishing a partnership, Indo-European partnership on research and innovation. And the three main pillars for this Indo-European partnership are first to go for a larger scope, impact and scale of what we are doing, Europe and India together. In other words, we think that what we are doing today is certainly good and goes in the right direction, but is missing somehow scope and scale as compared to the challenges ahead of Europe and India. Second pillar is that we would like to focus this partnership on the main societal challenges we have in Europe and in India, health, energy, environment. You know how important those challenges are. And the third and not least element is that it's an Indo-European partnership. So it means that on the European side, we will try to build on the complementarities, on the synergies we have between what the EU as such is doing with India, together with what the member states, the 27 member states of the EU, are doing with India, so that at the end of the day, we have a stronger, a better, a more sustainable and cooperation between the whole of Europe, EU and member states, and of course the whole of India. So just to illustrate a little bit this policy framework, I have 3 examples perhaps to highlight of initiatives which are in the pipeline. The first one has to do with clusters. They were mentioned in the previous session. Of course, clusters are extremely important, but as you know, clusters very quickly, they have needs which go beyond the local environment in which they are. They have scientific needs, they have management needs, they have financial needs, which are going beyond the local environment, and therefore it is important to help them establishing cooperation with other clusters in the world. And in Europe we have actually many sort of networks of connections between clusters, and what we are trying to do is to connect the European Cluster Collaboration Platform with the innovation clusters in India, and for that we have actually in particular the mobilization of EBTC, the European Business and Technology Center here in India, and also CII, the Confederation of Indian Industry. Second example is, of course, there is in India already, sometimes for many years, European businesses doing R&D activities and innovation activities such as Airbus or Shell or Philips or Bosch, for instance, which recently established a very interesting R&D center within IISc in Bangalore. And I would like just to draw your attention on a report which has been recently released by the European Business Group in India about what is the experience, what can we learn from those European businesses in India in terms of research and innovation, what can we learn from their experience, what are their needs, how can we mobilize them further to have those sort of public-private connections. And this report is innovation and R&D activities of European companies in India, and I'm sure that Anand Iyer here could tell you more about this report. I have no time now to go into the details, but it's certainly worth reading. And finally, third example is concerning price. In the report to the people, of course, this is mentioned, the importance of price, of innovation price. And what we are trying to explore today, Europe and India, is a possibility of having a price for innovation, not any sort of innovation, for inclusive innovation, for affordable innovation. Of course, this price would not be for Europeans in isolation and for Indians on their side. That would be a price for Europeans and Indians working together, possibly with public-private partnership, universities, public research institutions, together with small and medium enterprises, large multinational corporations. And this prize would also get actually financial resources from both Europe and India, and for both the public and the private sector. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That was exactly 6 minutes. Many thanks. And our missing speaker has joined us, Professor Hans-Jörg Bullinger, immediate past president of the Fraunhofer Gesellschaft from Germany. You have the last word, sir.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to inform you a little bit about the activities which we have at the Fraunhofer organization. I have had yesterday already a possibility to talk to the audience what we tried to do in the last years in Germany overall. And today I may a little bit focus on Fraunhofer. If you could help me with my slides, I would be even faster. Fraunhofer was founded 60 years ago, and it is reported that it took a bit more than 6 minutes to construct the model. But as it is a good model, I think 6 minutes will be enough to explain the Fraunhofer model. Fraunhofer I think I don't have to explain today in detail, was a gentleman who worked in the optical instruments. The basic reason was he had a factory on one side of the road, and on the other side of the road he had his research lab. So what he did in his research lab was immediately taken into the factory. That was a basic idea. So Fraunhofer grew quite fast. So this year he had his 25th birthday. It may happen that you get post from Germany with the Fraunhofer stamp. So you see he's well respected. In the meantime, Fraunhofer is spread all over the country. These are not subsidiaries. Each Fraunhofer Institute has its own target. We have more than 2,000 employees. This year, the budget mentioned here is that of 2011. I'm sure we will reach 2 billion euros. And we have had a possibility to grow very fast in the past 10 years. The reason was quite simple, because there was a big demand in industry. Even during the big crisis, 2008 and 2009, we hired more than 3,000 people additionally. What would not have been possible if industry would not have asked for contracts with us. So coming back to my initial statement, good ideas have to be simple. What was the simple idea with Fraunhofer? The simple idea is that at that time the politicians have had a wise decision, what happens not so often in Germany. The decision was that they discussed with us, how can we check whether you will do what you promise? Everybody who talked with the politicians said, we will do research to the welfare for the society and for industry. The wise decision was that they said, okay, we understood. If you will do what you promise us, then somebody will purchase your results. And for each 50 cents at that time, you will get another 50 cents for government to prepare yourself, that in 5 and 10 years, you will still be not a consultants company, will still be a research company, but in a position then also to give advice to industry. Over the year, with the fast growth, we got a new consensus that we get only 1/3 by government, but we get that for a free purpose, so we can decide our own in which area we invest it. There is no influence from government in which direction we should go, and 2/3 comes from contract research. In the meantime, we are spread all over the world, not all over the world, but over all places where the German industry is present. It's not so surprising, because our clients in Europe and in Germany around do a globalized business. How should they believe that we are a competent partner if we cannot show them that we have own experience, not only from visiting conferences and reading papers from our colleagues, what we of course always do with high respect. No, having carried out projects in those areas in cooperation with people out of those countries, with our research partners and with our industrial partners. We felt quite honored as this spring Mr. Obama and the States realized that it might be not a good idea to rely on economy only or mainly on services and financial services. So from time to time you have to manufacture something. And he decided then to invest $1 billion in a new research program for manufacturing. And what my people felt was a good sentences. Whoever have written this speech said he will follow the Germany's Fraunhofer Institute. I think the subject we are talking about, interface, because research and industry, there are different solutions possible. It must not be only a Fraunhofer model. But I think in each country you should have an answer for the question. And the question is, how do you make sure that the results which you have developed with the taxpayers' money in the university, in the research institutes, comes back to the society? What are we doing in research? We transfer money into knowledge. But somebody has to transfer that knowledge into money again, and that goes via innovation. And an innovation is not an invention. An innovation is, at the end of the day, a marketable product or a marketable service. And I think it is very helpful that we have discussions with this morning to see from different countries how they try to solve that problem. In Germany, we put very much effort in developing this organization, which I could represent now in some minutes here. And if you are interested in that, of course, we are very open-minded to answer your question and open for cooperation. Ms. Ayer, who was mentioned just recently, is also head of our office, which we 3 days ago opened in Bangalore, so we can report already from a lot of period and 2 or 3 years that model, working closely together to industry, even if they have to pay something for that, works also here in India. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I had the same amount of time allotted to me for some concluding remarks, but I will try and reduce them given that we've had a full discussion and the 4 o'clock hour is here and I'm standing between you and your tea break. Just to say briefly on India that we are moving increasingly to a knowledge society, that if you were to Google a phrase like frugal innovation, you would find that the first 20 hits all take you to Indian stories or stories about India and Indian companies. Indeed, last year I was invited to the University of Toronto to inaugurate something called an India Innovation Institute, the first of its kind in the world. So clearly there's a great deal of consciousness internationally of the extent to which innovation is making useful inroads in this country. And one of the buzzwords I heard last year was the idea of Indovation, to summarize the existence of Indian innovation. In my own area, the need to try and foster innovation in our institutions of higher education, to create opportunities to catalyze our innovation in the work of others, but more important perhaps to create an overall ecosystem of creativity and innovation in our educational institutions. This is all widely understood. I've often argued that what we need out of our education is not well-filled minds, but well-formed ones that are able to think creatively and come up with solutions to the kinds of problems that bedevil most people routinely. And I think what you heard from the Vice-Chancellor of Delhi University is itself an indication of that kind of progress. My ministry is setting up 5 design innovation centers attached to existing institutions of higher education in the course of this fiscal year. Delhi University has also launched a cluster innovation center, and we hope others will emulate it. And we are indeed pushing a bill for research and innovation in universities, which is before the related standing committee in Parliament. So there's a great deal happening, and I don't want to bore you with the details that I've been given to share with you, except that, as I'm sure Sam would appreciate, the importance of actually expanding our